Imagine a Europe where knights in shining armor were scattered by volleys from multi-barreled cannons decades before their historical invention. Picture armies of clockwork soldiers marching under the banner of Italian city-states, their gears grinding a new anthem of conquest across the continent. Envision a world where the skies above Renaissance cities were not empty, but crisscrossed by glinting ornithopters, scouting for enemies or delivering swift, silent death. Consider the fate of kings who saw their impenetrable fortresses crumble in days, not weeks, under the assault of tank-like vehicles dreamed up in a Florentine workshop. The city of Venice, once queen of the Adriatic, became empress of the known seas. Her warships armed with contraptions that could unleash firestorms or grapple enemy vessels from incredible distances. French cavalry charges, the pride of a nation, faltered and broke against mobile walls of sharpened steel, spewing forth a hail of projectiles. The dream of a unified Italy arrived centuries early, not through diplomacy, but on the treads of devastating war machines powered by genius and ambition. This was a Europe reshaped not by politicians or popes alone, but by the terrifying realized visions of one man, Leonardo da Vinci. Number 8. When Milan's Duke unleashed Leonardo's early terrors. In the late 15th century, Ludovico Sforza, the Duke of Milan, was a man with grand ambitions and many enemies. When Leonardo da Vinci arrived in Milan around 1482, he offered his services, listing his capabilities in military engineering first. In this world, Ludovico, facing threats from France and rival Italian states, did not just glance at the list. He funded it, poured resources into Leonardo's workshops, and the results began to terrify his foes. The first whispers came from the training grounds outside Milan. Peasants spoke of monstrous turtle-shelled chariots moving without horses, spitting fire from multiple cannons. These were Leonardo's armored vehicles, precursors to tanks, their wooden frames reinforced with metal plates, crewed by men who aimed devastating firepower in all directions. Soon after, Milanese forces deployed the Ribolds, Leonardo's multi-barreled organ gun, which could fire volleys of shot with terrifying speed, mowing down attacking infantry and cavalry alike. When King Charles VIII of France invaded Italy in 1494, he expected the usual resistance. Instead, at Fornovo, his confident French knights charged not into yielding Italian mercenaries, but into a storm of metal. Sforza's new weapons, commanded by engineers trained by Leonardo himself, tore through the French ranks. The armored chariots, impervious to lances and swords, broke the cavalry charges, their cannons blasting holes in the French formations. The rapid-fire guns cut down the famed Swiss pikemen hired by the French before they could even engage. The victory was so decisive that Charles VIII retreated from Italy, his dreams of conquest shattered. Milan, armed with Leonardo's genius, suddenly became the powerhouse of northern Italy. Ludovico, emboldened, used his new military might to expand Milanese influence. Rival city-states like Florence and Venice, initially dismissive, scrambled to understand the source of Milan's power. They sent spies, artists, and engineers hoping to replicate the Milanese war engines, but Leonardo, under Ludovico's patronage, constantly innovated. He developed improved siege engines, giant crossbows that could hurl flaming projectiles with incredible accuracy, and even early versions of automated defenders for fortress walls. Milanese armies, spearheaded by these technological marvels, became virtually unbeatable in open-field battles and sieges. Fortifications that once held for months fell in weeks. The balance of power in Italy tilted dramatically. Milanese ducats, backed by Milanese cannons and Leonardo's ingenuity, began to dictate terms across the Italian peninsula. The Sforza dynasty, instead of fading, established an iron grip, their dominion built upon the gears and gunpowder of their resident genius. Europe watched in stunned disbelief as Milan, once just another Italian power, began to cast a long mechanical shadow. Number 7. How Venice's secret naval Wyrms made them masters of the Mediterranean and beyond. The Republic of Venice, La Serenissima, had always been a maritime power, its fortunes built on trade and a formidable navy. But in this alternate, early 16th century, facing the growing threat of the Ottoman Empire and rivals like Genoa and Spain, the Venetian Council of Ten made a fateful decision. They sought out Leonardo da Vinci, not primarily for his art, but for his whispered-about designs for naval warfare. Leonardo, perhaps finding Venice more receptive to his grander aquatic schemes than other patrons, threw himself into the task. Deep within the secretive Venetian arsenal, new kinds of ships began to take shape. Leonardo's ideas for paddle-wheeled vessels, allowing galleys to move against wind and current with unprecedented speed and maneuverability, were just the beginning. He designed ships with double hulls, making them far more resistant to ramming and cannon fire. He developed terrifying new forms of Greek fire, launched from siphons that could set enemy fleets ablaze from a safer distance. The true terror of the Venetian fleet became what sailors whispered about as sea worms. These were not true submarines in the modern sense, but highly advanced submersible crafts based on Leonardo's sketches for diving suits and underwater demolition. Manned by elite Venetian combat, divers equipped with breathing apparatus and tools to breach enemy hulls below the waterline, these crafts could approach enemy fleets undetected. Imagine Ottoman admirals, confident in their massive fleet, watching in horror as their largest galleons inexplicably began to take on water, listing and sinking without a visible attacker. Venice also deployed scuttlers, small, fast vessels equipped with Leonardo's mechanical drills designed to bore holes in enemy ships during the chaos of battle. Combined with their improved cannons and fire weapons, the Venetian navy became an almost supernatural force. The Battle of Preveza, instead of a narrow Ottoman victory, the Venetian fleet, employing these new tactics and technologies, annihilated the Ottoman armada. Ships exploded from within or simply sank, their crews bewildered. With Ottoman naval power crippled, Venice seized undisputed control of the eastern Mediterranean. They didn't stop there. Venetian fleets, faster and more resilient than any other, began to project power further. They dominated trade routes not just to the Levant, but around the Iberian Peninsula, challenging Portuguese and Spanish ambitions in the Atlantic. Leonardo also designed massive floating siege platforms, armed with his heaviest artillery, which could be towed into position to bombard coastal fortresses that had once been considered impregnable from the sea. The Doge of Venice effectively became the maritime emperor of southern Europe. Tribute flowed into Venetian coffers, not just from trade, but from coastal cities and kingdoms that paid for Venetian protection from the sea worms and their technologically advanced fleet. The Mediterranean became a Venetian lake, and the ripples of its naval dominance, powered by Leonardo's mind, began to reshape the economic and political landscape of the entire European continent and beyond. English and French ports nervously watched for the telltale signs of Venetian innovation approaching their shores. Number 6. The time Florence's flying machines darkened the skies of Europe. In this reality, Lorenzo de Medici, the Magnificent, lived longer, his astute eye recognizing the profound world-altering potential in Leonardo da Vinci's more audacious designs, particularly those concerning flight. While historically, Leonardo's patrons were often skeptical of his flying machines, this Lorenzo, driven by a vision of Florentine supremacy, funded them lavishly in the late 15th century. The hills around Florence became a secretive testing ground, not just for art and philosophy, but for wings and rotors. Leonardo, with near-limitless resources and the Duke's unwavering support, moved beyond simple gliders. He developed functional ornithopters, man-powered flying machines that mimicked the flight of birds. Initially fragile and capable of only short hops, these machines were refined. Stronger, lighter materials were developed, and systems of gears and levers, drawn from Leonardo's deep understanding of mechanics, allowed trained pilots to achieve sustained flight. The first military application was reconnaissance. Florentine ornithopters launched from high towers or hilltops soared over enemy territories, providing unparalleled intelligence. Rival Italian states were baffled. Their troop movements were known, their fortifications mapped from above. But Leonardo and Lorenzo had grander plans. Small incendiary devices were developed capable of being dropped with surprising accuracy by the aerial scouts. Then came the aerial bombardiers, larger, more stable flying contraptions, perhaps multi-winged gliders or rudimentary rotorcraft, capable of carrying heavier loads. When conflict inevitably arose with a coalition of rival states, the Florentine aerial corps was unleashed. Imagine the Sienese army marching confidently, suddenly finding itself under attack from above, not by divine intervention, but by winged contraptions dropping fire and scattering their formations. Panic ensued. Cavalry horses, terrified by the shadows and whirring sounds from the sky, bolted. Infantrymen, with no defense against this aerial assault, broke and fled. Florence, under the Medici, began to use its aerial advantage to devastating effect. Sieges were transformed. Walls designed to repel land-based assaults were vulnerable to attacks from above. Key enemy commanders or supply depots could be targeted with pinpoint accuracy. The psychological impact was immense. Soldiers whispered of Florentine sky demon. This Florentine air armada allowed the Republic to project its power far beyond Tuscany. They could strike deep into enemy territory, bypass traditional defenses, and deliver messages or small detachments of specialized troops behind enemy lines. European powers, from France to the Holy Roman Empire, were caught completely off guard. Their military doctrines, centuries in the making, had no answer to warfare in 3 dimensions. Florence became the dominant power in Italy, its influence spreading like the shadow of its wings. Ambassadors from across Europe flocked to the city, not just to admire its art, but to beg for or attempt to steal the secrets of flight. Leonardo established an academy of aeronautical engineering, ensuring Florence's continued aerial supremacy. The Renaissance in this Florence was not just one of art and humanism, but of mechanical flight and aerial domination. Its symbol not David, but the soaring silhouette of the Florentine ornithopter against the European sky. Number 5. When the French king got Leonardo's war engines and nearly conquered Italy, King Francis I of France was a known admirer of Italian Renaissance culture, and indeed, he historically became Leonardo da Vinci's patron in the master's final years. In this alternate timeline, this connection happens much earlier and with more significant military implications. Imagine a younger, more militarily ambitious Francis I, perhaps around 1510, not just offering Leonardo a comfortable retirement, but actively seeking his expertise to modernize the French war machine. Leonardo, perhaps disillusioned with the shifting politics of Italian city-states or simply offered an irresistible sum and resources by the powerful French monarch, relocates to France with all his notebooks and a mandate to build. The French royal workshops are soon buzzing with activity, constructing devices that Leonardo had only dreamed of or prototyped on a small scale in Italy. The French army, already formidable, is transformed. They are equipped with Leonardo's multi-barreled cannons, which decimate opposing infantry formations. His designs for improved siege weapon, mighty trebuchets with counterweights of incredible power, and screw-driven battering rams protected by armored shells, allow French forces to reduce Italian fortresses with alarming speed. Francis I, a king who personally led his troops into battle, now possesses an arsenal unlike any other in Europe. Perhaps Leonardo even develops a more focused version of his incendiary projectors, a concentrated beam of fire, or a device that hurls multiple incredibly hot projectiles, which French soldiers dub les soufflets du dragon, the dragon's breath. This weapon proves devastating against tightly packed enemy formations and wooden structures. When Francis I launches his Italian campaigns, the results are starkly different. The Italian state, even if they possess some of Leonardo's earlier, less developed designs, find themselves outmatched by France's superior, mass-produced and refined Da Vincian weaponry. The Battle of Marignano in 1515, historically a hard-fought French victory, becomes a rout. Swiss pikemen, usually a terrifying force, are torn apart by French artillery and novel war engines before they can even close ranks. Milan falls quickly. Florence, Venice, and the Papal States, facing this technologically superior French army, are forced into subservience or alliance on French terms. Leonardo's armored vehicles improved and built with French resources, spearhead assaults, their cannons blazing. These are not just the turtle-like chariots of earlier dreams, but more robust machines capable of traversing difficult terrain. The dream of French hegemony over Italy becomes a reality. Francis I, with Leonardo as his chief military engineer, effectively rules the Italian peninsula. The balance of power in Europe shifts dramatically. The Holy Roman Emperor, Charles V, finds his ambitions checked not just by French valor, but by French technology. England watches nervously from across the Channel. Leonardo, honored and richly rewarded in the French court, continues to innovate, perhaps even exploring early concepts for standardized interchangeable parts for his machines, allowing for quicker repairs and production. The fleur-de-lis flies over Italian cities, not because of superior French numbers alone, but because the King of France had the foresight to weaponize the mind of the Renaissance greatest inventor, turning Italy's own genius against. The age of French military dominance arrives early, powered by gears, gunpowder, and Leonardo. Number 4. Caesar Borgia's unstoppable clockwork legions. Caesar Borgia, son of Pope Alexander VI, was a man of ruthless ambition and military brilliance, carving out a state for himself in central Italy during the late 15th and early 16th centuries. In this alternate history, Leonardo da Vinci, who historically did work for Caesare as a military architect and engineer for a brief period around 1502, finds in Borgia a patron willing to embrace his most radical and terrifying ideas for warfare. Caesar, with the backing of papal funds and a hunger for power, provides Leonardo with everything he needs. The Romagna workshops become forges of future warfare. Leonardo doesn't just design fortifications, he designs armies. He focuses on his concepts for mechanical knights, not true robots, but heavily armored, man-powered fighting vehicles bristling with blades, scythes, and perhaps even small breech-loading cannons. These are deployed in formations, acting as mobile, human-crewed, battering rams, and infantry shredders. Imagine these clockwork legions, as they become known, advancing on an enemy town. Each unit a complex arrangement of gears, levers, and armor plating, propelled by strong men hidden within, impervious to arrows and most contemporary firearms. They are slow, but terrifyingly inexorable. Accompanying them are Leonardo's rapid-firing organ guns, improved siege engines that can be assembled and deployed with greater speed, and specialized demolition devices. Caesar Borgia, a brilliant tactician, integrates these new weapons babbing into his campaigns. His enemies, accustomed to traditional pike squares and cavalry charges, are bewildered. How do you fight an enemy that advances behind mobile walls of steel and wood, an enemy whose artillery reloads and fires with unnatural speed. Walled cities that expected to hold out for months find their gates smashed and their walls breached in days by Leonardo's ingenious contraptions. The armies of the Orsini and Colonna families, Cesare's rivals, are systematically crushed. His campaigns to subdue the cities of the Romagna and Marche are brutally effective. Each victory brings more resources, more fear, and more captured artisans who can be pressed into service building, more war machines under Leonardo's direction. The Borgia's steam, a misnomer as they were not yet steam-powered but so seemingly unshoppable they were attributed an almost magical internal force, becomes a legend of terror. Perhaps Leonardo even developed advanced incendiary weapons or chemical agents based on his studies of botany and combustion, which Cesare would have had no qualms about using to break enemy morale. With central Italy firmly under his control, Cesare, backed by his father, the Pope, and armed with Leonardo's war engines, begins to look further. Florence, nervous about this rising power, tries to form alliances. The speed and ferocity of Borgia's campaigns, spearheaded by the clockwork legions, are too much. He doesn't just defeat armies, he annihilates them, his mechanical forces grinding down any opposition. The Borgia dominion, built on fear and Leonardo's war technology, spreads like wildfire. Other Italian states are forced to pay tribute or face invasion by these seemingly unstoppable forces. The Papal States, under Borgia influence, become a military superpower. The dream of a unified Italian kingdom under Borgia rule seems within reach, not through divine right, but through the terrifying application of early industrial age warfare. In the heart of the Renaissance, all thanks to Leonardo's dark genius being unleashed by a perfectly matched, ruthless patron. Number 3. The day the Holy Roman Emperor built invincible rolling forts. In the early 16th century, the Holy Roman Emperor Maximilian I, and later Charles V, commanded vast territories but faced constant challenges from France, the Ottoman Empire, and rebellious German princes. In this timeline, Leonardo da Vinci, perhaps seeking patronage after the fall of Ludovico Sforza in Milan or during a period of instability in Italy, finds his way into the service of the emperor. Maximilian, a ruler fascinated by artillery and new military technologies, sees the potential in Leonardo's designs for mobile fortifications and powerful siege engines. The sprawling resources of the Holy Roman Empire are put at Leonardo's disposal. German and Austrian engineers and artisans, renowned for their metalworking and clockmaking skills, are assigned to bring his concepts to life. The focus is on defensibility and overwhelming firepower. Leonardo's designs for armored vehicles evolve into something larger, land cruisers, or rolling forts. These are not swift tanks, but massive, heavily armored wooden and iron structures on reinforced wheels or rollers, pulled by teams of oxen or even complex internal capstan systems powered by dozens of men. They are designed to be mobile artillery platforms and troop carriers capable of withstanding enemy fire while delivering devastating volleys from multiple cannons and protected positions for crossbowmen or arquebusiers. Imagine these colossal machines lumbering across the battlefields of Europe. French cavalry charges break against their ironclad sides. Enemy artillery struggles to make a dent in their reinforced structures. From within these rolling forts, imperial cannons fire with deadly accuracy, protected from counter-battery fire. During the Italian wars, instead of protracted sieges and evenly matched battles, the imperial forces, spearheaded by these mobile fortresses, gain a decisive edge. Cities that would have resisted for months are cowed into submission by the appearance of these behemoths outside their walls. Field armies find their formations shattered by the relentless advance and concentrated firepower of the land cruisers. Leonardo also perfects his designs for siege weaponry. Giant trebuchets, based on his understanding of leverage and counterweights, are constructed with German precision, capable of hurling enormous stones or incendiary devices with greater range and accuracy than ever before. His ideas for rapid assembly bridges allow imperial armies to cross rivers and obstacles with surprising speed, outmaneuvering their opponents. Charles V, succeeding Maximilian, inherits this technologically advanced military. He uses it to consolidate his power within the empire, crushing princely rebellions with terrifying efficiency. The Schmalkaldic League, for instance, finds its forces unable to withstand the imperial war machines. Against the Ottomans in the east, these rolling forts provide mobile bastions of defense, slowing and then repelling Ottoman advances into Hungary and Austria. The dominance of the Holy Roman Empire in Central Europe becomes unshakable. France is contained, its ambitions in Italy thwarted by imperial technological superiority. The emperor dictates terms not just through diplomacy or the size of his armies, but through the sheer invincibility of his Da Vincian war engines. The factories in Augsburg and Vienna churn out components for these machines, making the empire a hub of advanced military engineering. Leonardo, as the imperial chief engineer, oversees a vast network of workshops, his notebooks becoming the sacred texts of a new form of warfare. Europe becomes a continent overshadowed by the iron fortresses of the Holy Roman Emperor, a testament to German engineering realizing Italian genius. Number 2. How Ottoman sultans used Da Vinci's secrets to conquer the West. Ottoman Empire in the early 16th century was already a formidable military power, pushing into Europe and controlling vast swaths of the eastern Mediterranean and North Africa. In this alternate history, Leonardo da Vinci's notebooks, filled with his most advanced military designs, fall into the hands of Sultan Selim I, or his successor Suleiman the Magnificent. Perhaps they are stolen by Ottoman spies from a chaotic Italy where Leonardo, feeling unappreciated or seeking a patron with truly global ambitions, makes a clandestine offer to the Sultan. The Ottomans, with their centralized power, vast resources, and existing expertise in siege warfare and artillery, like the great bombards used to conquer Constantinople, are uniquely positioned to implement Leonardo's ideas on a grand scale. Ottoman engineers, working in secrecy in the Topkapi Palace workshops, begin to decipher and construct these marvels. Imagine Ottoman janissaries, already an elite fighting force, being equipped with Leonardo's multi-barreled guns, unleashing unprecedented firepower against Hungarian knights or Safavid armies. Consider Ottoman siege lines outside Vienna or Rhodes now featuring not just massive cannons, but also Leonardo's designs for screw-driven siege towers that can be raised mechanically, or armored boring machines to undermine walls. But the true game-changer is the adaptation of Leonardo's naval and amphibious assault ideas. The Ottoman fleet, already powerful, incorporates designs for paddle-wheel ships for greater maneuverability in becalmed seas or against currents, double-hulled warships for increased resilience, and devastating new incendiary weapons. Leonardo's concepts for temporary bridges or amphibious landing craft allow Ottoman forces to cross strategic waterways like the Danube, or even make surprise landings on Italian or Spanish coasts with terrifying efficiency. Perhaps the Ottomans even develop a version of Leonardo's tank, but adapted for their terrain and tactics, lighter, more maneuverable armored vehicles that can support cavalry charges or break infantry squares. Or they might focus on his aerial reconnaissance ideas using tethered observation balloons or advanced kite systems to spy on Christian armies and fortifications, giving them a crucial intelligence advantage. The Siege of Vienna in 1529 takes a different turn. Instead of a heroic defense and Ottoman withdrawal, the city falls, breached by new types of siege engines and assaulted by janissaries supported by mobile armored shields and rapid-fire weapons. With Vienna as a foothold, Ottoman armies push deeper into Central Europe. The Hungarian plains are overrun. The Italian states, once the cradle of the Renaissance, find themselves on the front line against an Ottoman empire armed with the fruits of their own genius. Rhodes, Malta, and other Christian strongholds in the Mediterranean fall to an Ottoman navy that seems unstoppable, employing underwater demolition teams based on Leonardo's diving suit designs to cripple defenses. Ottoman galleys equipped with advanced grappling mechanisms and fire projectors sweep the seas. The balance of power shifts catastrophically for Christian Europe. The Ottoman Empire, its traditional military prowess, now augmented by Leonardo's revolutionary technology, becomes the undisputed superpower of the Mediterranean world and makes significant, lasting inroads into the heart of Europe. The Sultan in Constantinople, not the Pope in Rome or the Holy Roman Emperor, dictates the fate of nations. European art and science become infused with Ottoman influences, as the technological secrets of Leonardo, once lost to the West, return in the form of unstoppable armies and fleets from the East. Call to prayer is heard in cities that never imagined falling under the crescent moon. Number 1. The Italian Alliance and their army of indestructible iron giants. Frustrated by the endless squabbling of individual city-states and foreign invaders carving up Italy, a visionary group of Italian leaders, perhaps including a more politically astute Leonardo da Vinci himself, alongside figures from Florence, Venice, and Milan. This occurs in the early 1500s, a period of intense conflict. Instead of offering his services to individual, often unreliable patrons, Leonardo becomes the chief architect of a secret pan-Italian military technological pact. Resources from across the peninsula are pooled. The finest artisans, engineers, and materials are brought together in hidden arsenals and workshops, far from prying eyes. Leonardo is given carte blanche to realize his most ambitious and most terrifying war machines, specifically for the defense and unification of Italy, and then for the projection of its power. The centerpiece of this new Italian army becomes the colossi, not merely armored cars, but truly gigantic, multi-crewed war engines. Imagine structures 3 stories high, built on immensely strong wheeled or tracked platforms, clad in the thickest armor Italian foundries can produce. These are mobile fortresses, each housing dozens of soldiers, multiple cannons of varying calibers, scythed wheels, and even Leonardo's designs for repeating crossbows or organ guns mounted on rotating turrets. Propelled by complex systems of gears and cranks, powered by teams of men working in shifts, or perhaps even early experiments with steam or other unconventional power sources that Leonardo had theorized, their advance is slow but relentless. When French, Spanish, or imperial armies invade Italy, they are met not by disparate mercenary companies, but by a unified Italian force spearheaded by these iron giants. The psychological impact is devastating. Cavalry charges shatter against their armored hulls. Infantry formations are broken by their irresistible advance and overwhelming firepower. Conventional artillery of the day makes little impression on their thick plating. Italian armies, supported by these colossi, systematically drive foreign powers from the peninsula. The Battle of Pavia sees not a French victory and the capture of Francis I, but a crushing defeat for the French army, its knights and lanzknechts, unable to withstand the mechanical behemoths. The sack of Rome is averted, as papal forces integrated into the Italian alliance are reinforced by these engines of war. With Italy secured and largely unified under this technologically dominant military confederation, the alliance begins to look outwards. Its first targets are the Barbary pirates, whose coastal raids had plagued Italy for centuries. Leonardo's naval innovations, faster ships, underwater attack craft, and powerful new cannons, combined with amphibious assaults launched by smaller, more agile versions of his land vehicles, decimate the pirate strongholds in North Africa. The Italian alliance becomes the dominant power in the Mediterranean. Its fleets, protected by technologically superior warships, control trade routes. European nations, once eager to meddle in Italian affairs, now send ambassadors to negotiate, not to threaten. They marvel at the Italian war machines, trying desperately to understand their secrets. Leonardo establishes a grand Accademia Militare Politecnica, where new generations of Italian engineers refine and expand upon his designs, ensuring Italy's continued teleological supremacy. Europe enters an age of uneasy peace, largely dictated by the Italian alliance and its army of iron giants. No single nation dares to challenge this new superpower directly. The Renaissance flourishes under a united, secure Italy, but it is a Renaissance defended by and ultimately defined by the awesome power of Leonardo da Vinci's realized war machines. The dream of Roman glory is reborn, not through legions of men, but through legions of iron, wood, and intricate clockwork.